What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Patsa podcast. Back after another week of some Inter developments, mainly midweek, the 2-2 draw with Monza that happened and ended up winning on penalties. Just a preseason match, so good to get another victory there. And then the huge news and rumors that came out midweek towards the end of the week about Kone from Roma potentially being an option that would fit in well with what Kivu apparently is trying to do in the midfield. And then those rumors just got squashed almost immediately with the news of Roma shutting the door down completely on that potentially happening. So we're going to pick up from that kind of during the week stuff and start with the post match thoughts and analysis of the Inter victory yesterday against Olympiacos at the Stadio San Nicola in Bari. It was a very good performance from Inter. Like I said, the last video, it is just preseason. Last preseason, we had Mercato looking like Giuseppe Miazza out there. So take everything with a grain of salt. But it was probably the best performance we've seen since that 5-0 demolition in the Champions League. And it looked like, there were some positive signs to build on from this match. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and then kind of go where, the next week or two goes in the mercato and then starting the season off. So Kivu selected a pretty strong side to start the match. We started with Jan Sommer in goal, first choice back line probably, with Pavard, Acerbi, and Bastoni making up that back three. Across the five in the middle, again, we started with the 3-5-2, so no real tactical changes again from Kivu from that Inzaghi era. So we had Dumfries, Barella, Sucic playing in that regista role that we've seen Çalhanoğlu over the past few years play. And then Mkhitaryan and Di Marco on the left wing back, and then Thuram and Lautaro starting up top. So one of our stronger sides we could field probably. Hopefully not Mkhitaryan, and depending on who you talk to, Benji Pavard might be replaced with Jan Bisek. But all in all, pretty strong side that Kivu decided to field. So I thought right out the gate, we saw sloppiness, which is something we've seen all preseason, and a little alarming. It's tough to get these guys motivated for a preseason match, I'm guessing. Or not these guys. I guess it's tough for the guys just to get motivated for a preseason match. You're just trying to get your fitness, your legs underneath you, and all that stuff. So it's understandable, but it's also a little worrisome, just simply based off the fact that we saw this during the season last year too. And it's something I mentioned last week with Mkhitaryan coming out and being quoted as saying, we start matches slow because we assume we're going to win the match depending on who we play. So a little alarming that we started slow again with some bad giveaways. Benji Pavard had one kind of early that led to a chance. Sucic kind of deep in that regista role had a giveaway or two. And just a little alarming there. It's something that we'll need to maybe monitor as the season starts next weekend. So keep an eye on that. But I think outside of the first 10 or 15 minutes in that first half, really, we settled in and started to dominate and really put our stamp on the match, despite Olympiacos' best efforts to derail us with some late harsh challenges. I thought, but yeah, other than that, the goal and a lot of our chances too. Goal coming from Di Marco is a great, well-worked move through the team. I think Sucic started it out, played it up to somebody, maybe Mkhitaryan, who laid it to Thuram. Thuram then lays it through for Lautaro, who plays it across to, take your pick, Di Marco or Dumfries. Doesn't matter who tapped it in. It was going to be a goal. And it was a well-worked team goal. Lautaro maybe was offsides, but with it being a preseason friendly, no VAR, who knows? Goal stands. And yeah, it was a great, well worked team goal. And again, like I was just saying, the chance came from the middle of the field, and that's a relief. During the last year or so of Inzaghi era, the last 6 months specifically, most of our chances were just crosses or set pieces. And we were lacking some fluidity and creativity and chance creation from the center of the park. So the fact that we got that in the first half against an Olympiacos team that seemed to fill, probably most of their first team players, and they're a team that could potentially be in European spots and should be fighting for European spots year in and year out in the Greek league. So that was good to see. I thought in the first half, and if you've watched this podcast for a while, you're going to think it's funny, but for me, Mkhitaryan was one of the best on the pitch in the first half. He had a really good performance. He had some strange touches and maybe a little one of his trademark characteristic giveaways in the final third. But other than that, I think he had a really solid performance. And then Thuram just looked really lively on the ball, his movement, his hold up play. That's the Thuram that we got at the beginning of last season. And that's the Thuram that is probably feeling the pressure with Boni being right behind him and the good performances that Boni's put in. So bravo Thuram for that response. It was a really good first half. One thing I didn't really care for, and I didn't, when I saw the starting lineup, I thought Barella was going to be playing in that regista role, and Sucic was going to continue playing in that more advanced mezzala role, if you want to say. But it was switched, so Sucic played in that regista. And for me, from the outgo, I wasn't a fan of trying that. Coming in, Sucic got a lot of hype and comparison to Marcelo Brozovic. Like he's going to be the next Marcelo Brozovic. But I think quickly a lot of analysts, Uncle Sharma for sure, one of his YouTube videos on Petr Sucic saying that he's not like a Brozovic type player. And the more I watched him, the more I've been comparing him to Fabian Ruiz for PSG. And so I didn't think that it was going to be, or I didn't like that he started in that regista role, but it's something to try in preseason. And for me, it didn't really work out that well in that role. And I think once we saw the move in the second half, he became a little more settled and looked good. Now, there were some good moments where he picked the ball up deep. And this is what I've been saying, what I like seeing from Sucic is picking the ball up and driving forward with the ball at his feet, using those long legs to run at defenses. But you're kind of limited whenever you pick the ball up deep in your own defensive third in doing that. You lose the ball, you run the chance of losing the ball like he did a time or two, and putting the pressure immediately on your defense, your defenders. So wasn't a big fan, but I don't think he played terribly, just wasn't up to the standards that we've seen the past few preseason matches. So I put he needed to be higher up the pitch in my first half thoughts. I thought that the Olympiacos team, it was reported with the Napoli match, if you watch, they had just played Napoli a couple weeks ago. Sorry, a couple days ago. Uh, and Conte went out on the field and had some words with the coach of Olympiacos and some of the players over their challenges. And I was a little concerned going into the match that maybe we might, you know, get an injury or something, or they might try the same thing. And they were coming in really late and playing dirty. It seemed like not too terribly dirty, but there were some rash challenges and just weren't playing like you should in a preseason friendly. And then unfortunately, DiMarco got injured. You could see there was a foul on Mkhitaryan, but before that, there was a late challenge on DiMarco on the sideline there. And he never really recovered from that. He tried his best for about 5-10 minutes, but again, it was a late challenge that led to a DiMarco injury. News coming out, though, it's just a contusion or a deep kind of bruise to his quad, so shouldn't really miss any time. Just a precaution. Good news, because DiMarco had a good game, and I think he's had a pretty decent preseason. So good to see that DiMarco is back potentially on form, especially with Carlos Augusto being injured for this match. Rumors are it's just fatigue, so hopefully he's ready to suit up against Torino on match day 1. But other than that, I thought the first half was a solid performance, barring those first 10 or 15 minutes. Second half, though, I think we started a whole lot better. And kind of what I was mentioning a few minutes ago, I think the change moving Barella back to Regista, if you saw that change right at the beginning of the second half, and then Sucic filled that role that Barella had in the first half, I think it made all the difference. And you could see we came out a lot more creative, a lot more fiery, and everything. And I want to see Sucic playing more high up the pitch from now on out, or here on out. I don't want to see him playing in that regista role, barring any emergency situation. So hopefully, Kivu has figured that out, and you know that's a really good sign that they're making these adjustments, not like Inzaghi would have, who these players just play one position and that's it. The fact that Kivu came out in the second half and tried something different, switched a couple players positionally to see how that would affect the match, that's only a good sign for Inter as well. So really good to see that in the second half. I really, really enjoyed seeing Pio and Boni come on again. I mentioned it last week, and it's another really good sign to see from this match. Just the energy, liveliness that they bring. Match days in the Serie A, if we are able to bring these guys on in the 60th, 70th minute, whatever, later in matches when defenders are going to be a little more tired, having to deal with Lautaro and Thuram for 60 to 70 minutes, and then these two guys come in, it's going to be a handful for any defenders. And this might be the biggest thing that we see for Inter this season that's a difference from last season, is the energy and youthfulness from these two guys. So really, really exciting to see again this happen. Would be interesting to see, though, how they start matches out in the Serie A season. Even if it's with Boni with Lautaro, or Pio with Thuram, Pio with Lautaro, Boni and Thuram. It'd be interesting to see how these two players start matches. But I think coming into matches, it's going to be really good and beneficial for the squad. So exciting to see. Another thing that was interesting is that when Zielinski and Çalhanoğlu came on, you would think Çalhanoğlu would sit in that regista role and Zielinski would play higher in the midfield. But Kivu, again, trying something different and not forcing players to play just one position and that's it. He actually put Zielinski in that regista role and moved Çalhanoğlu up to the mezzala, number 8, whatever you want to call it, higher up the pitch in the midfield 3. And it worked. I think barring Zielinski's first touch of the ball, which probably should have been a penalty if we're being honest with ourselves. Luckily, no VAR in preseason. But Çalhanoğlu played great, I think, in that mezzala role. And I think Zielinski, like I said, barring that first touch, I think he had some really neat, tidy touches, really good on the ball. He can dribble out of space. And for me, having Zielinski back healthy, fit, think about this is really his first match since, what is it, March that he's played. So obviously the first touch is going to be a little slow and he's going to be shaking off some dust. But if you look back 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons ago, other than Barella in midfield and Serie A, you might be able to mention one or two other players consistently that have been as good as Zielinski was, barring last season. And the injuries were freak. He's a player that's never really been injury prone. So if we can get a healthy Zielinski who can get a run of matches and put up performances like he did for Napoli, it's going to be like having a brand new player. He's not going to be sitting behind Mkhitaryan like he was under Inzaghi. That stubbornness that Inzaghi had of not playing anyone but Mkhitaryan, he's not hampered by that. There's rumors that we're going to sell Zielinski and everything like that. But for me, I really, really have enjoyed Zielinski as a player over the last 5 to 6 seasons in Serie A. And I really think that we can only benefit from having this player come back healthy and get game time in matches. I know his wages are a little high, and I get if they do eventually sell him, but I have a soft spot for Zielinski and would love to see him get a run of games and see what he can actually really do for this squad. Because I think on his day, there's not many midfielders in the league in Serie A that can compete with Zielinski's quality and class. So really good to see. Dumfries back to his best, being that person on the back post, crosses from the left wing back position, or anywhere from the left side, affecting that. Being an absolute bomber up and down the right wing the whole match that he played. Just being a threat. And this is the Dumfries that we saw against Barcelona and all that. So knowing that Dumfries is back to his best and looked really good is a great sign going into the season. And then final thing, most important thought, and the best thing that I think we've seen this whole preseason is we finally got a clean sheet going into that first match day against Torino. So really good. Acerbi I thought played great, which has been kind of a sign of struggle in this preseason. Bastoni, Pavard started a little shaky, but I think they settled in the match. And just getting a clean sheet, I'd still think we need a center back signing, whether that means De Vrij leave and bring someone in or just bring someone in as a center back. That's probably our biggest glaring hole for me, in my opinion. But we got a clean sheet. Acerbi looked positive. Only good things going into the game against Torino. So really good to see. Before we wrap this up, last thing of note, just saw this as I was walking in to record. Zalewski got a here we go for 17 million to Atalanta. Now I saw a lot of Inter fans being upset, and I get it. But I think if you take Atalanta out of the equation and just look, buying a player for 6 to 7 million, depending on what source you see, people are saying 6.5, 7 million from Roma in June, and then selling within a month and a half that same player for 11 million, $10 million profit. You can't really be upset with that. A player who seemingly, if you watch the match yesterday, Kivu, whenever DiMarco went out for his injury, Kivu, instead of bringing Zalewski in, who you'd think would be the first choice with Carlos Augusto being hurt, to back up DiMarco, I think it was pretty telling that he brought on Luis Enrique instead. Zalewski hasn't really got much preseason time. He was, I think, the first sub in that Urara game. He came off at halftime after trying that 3-4-2-1 with Pio and Zalewski in behind the striker, the further forward up player. So I think it's been kind of telling, and I think Kivu must have not seen Zalewski in his plans. And the fact that we got 10 million for a player who hasn't really done much in preseason, or 10 million plus um, increase on his sale, I think it's a fleece. Now I get it's Atalanta, but if you think about it, Sky's reporting that this has nothing to do with the Lookman transfer. Just thinking in terms of logic, I think that's kind of not true. I think you can't be selling someone to somebody who apparently has been terrible in negotiations. You wouldn't open up negotiations that easily. This deal got done within 6 minutes. So I think this Lookman saga still has another chapter to be written. But like I said a couple weeks ago, I'm not going to mention too deep into that. But I think it's a good sign. And the fact that we made this profit off of Zalewski, who maybe wasn't in Kivu's plans, can't hurt Inter, I don't think. And then, we have Aslani reportedly going to Bologna, maybe Pavard going out the deal or out the door. I think we have not seen the end of our mercato. Wouldn't surprise me if we've seen the end of bringing in players, but I think we'll bring in at least one or two more players. If it's Lookman and maybe Kone, because apparently, Roma shut the door on that, but they might be forced to sell due to FFP, or Frindrup and Lookman, maybe a center back and Lookman. I think, I think we'll bring in two more signings, and I think it'll be two signings to help the squad a lot. So not too much longer in the mercato. I know it's been an exhausting mercato, kind of ready for it to be over. Not too much longer till the season starts. So all good things are about to wrap up and start. And yeah, I can't wait for the season to start. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. When we come out with a couple of different types of videos here in the next couple of weeks, so be on the lookout on that. And I appreciate all the love. And as always, Forza Inter.